First up now, let's get you the latest on the world's largest election unfolding in India. Well, the great Indian democratic election will witness its sixth and penultimate phase being held on Saturday. 58 parliamentary seats in 8 states and union territories are going to polls in this phase. All security and other arrangements have been put in place by election authorities to ensure free, fair and bumper voting. Take a look at this report sent in by DD India's team from across the nation.
The buzz of activities for deployment of security forces and polling parties in Delhi was at its peak on Friday. 7 seats in India's capital with over 14.7 million voters are going to polls on Saturday.
The countdown for the 6th phase of the Great Indian Elections has started, where all the 7 constituencies of the National Capital Territory of Delhi will be going to polls. And as the power center of India votes, the elections in Delhi has become a prestige battle for all the political parties in the poll fray. Meanwhile, the Election Commission of India has made elaborate arrangements to ensure a smooth, comfortable and transparent voting process for the people of Delhi.
करीब 11.13 करोड़ वोटर्स वोट देने जाएंगे और वो जाएंगे लगभग 1,14,000 बूथ पे कल वोट देने जाएंगे. तो सबसे आह्वान है कि वोट देने जरूर आएँ. ये मतलब छठी फेज़ है कल और थोड़ी गर्मी है. गर्मी के सारे इंतजाम हमने बचाने के बूथ्स पिक किए हैं.
Preparations for Saturday's polling in Haryana, where 10 parliamentary constituencies go to polls, have been completed. You can see behind me, polling parties have gathered here to collect their EVMs from the distribution centers where they've been kept in strong rooms. They're getting these EVMs issued and moving to their respective polling stations. There are about 20,000 polling stations across the state.
Last-minute preparations for the polling are underway. This is the Tomluk Lok Sabha constituency, where you can see the polling parties are being disbursed to their respective polling stations from here. This is the polling material distribution and receiving center for about 4 to 5 assembly segments within the Tomluk Lok Sabha constituency here in West Bengal. The EVMs are being thoroughly checked by the polling parties. The polling parties are being handed over the polling materials that will be required to conduct smooth polling tomorrow when the polling begins at about 7 a.m. in the morning.
Apart from 8 parliamentary seats in West Bengal, 7 in Delhi and 10 in Haryana, 14 constituencies will witness polling in Uttar Pradesh, 8 in Bihar, 6 in Odisha, 4 in Jharkhand and 1 in Jammu and Kashmir. 42 assembly seats in Odisha will also go to polls in this phase. Only the 7th and last phase will remain to be polled after Saturday. The people's verdict will emerge on the 4th of June when counting takes place. With Akshay Dongre from Delhi, Amritpal Singh from Ambala and Dibendu Mondal from Tamluk, Bureau Report, DD India.
Now, the inked finger has become a symbol of voter awareness in India. The mark, a proof that a person has cast his or her vote, brings with it a sense of achievement and pride. But in one of the seats going to polls in Odisha, it might as well get you a 20% rebate on a restaurant bill. The Hotel Association of Puri has decided to give a discount to patrons with the indelible mark on their finger. Ravi Dhaman reports.
Puri, the temple town, is an important pilgrimage center. One of the Char Dham in the nation, its preeminent place in spiritual context has also made it a prestigious Lok Sabha seat for the state of Odisha. After the cacophony of election campaign has ceded space to the usual hustle and bustle of a normal urban life, this seaside town is all decked up for polling on 25th of May. In a welcome move, the Hotel Association of Puri has announced a 20% waiver on the bills to the voters in all its member restaurants. The indelible ink mark on the fingers will help voters erase 20% of their food and beverage bill.
Every day we make profits, but sometimes we have to do something for the society and country also. So this is an encouragement for the people to come out and vote.
We are offering a 20% discount on food and beverage for 25th, the election day here. and the next day 26th also consecutively we are offering 20% to encourage the young voter along with their parents also.
The offer will be valid not only for 25th but also for Sunday the 26th. So even after the day, the voters can go and enjoy the offer in about 100 hotels of Puri, which also house a restaurant.
Voting will be till evening 6 or 5:30. So people who go out to vote may find it difficult again to go out for dinner. So they can enjoy the Sunday's brunch and evening snacks and dinner too.
The tourists visiting Puri who have already cast their votes in earlier phases may also reap the windfall, but the association is not very particular about it. The voters will get a reward for exercising their franchise. This step by the hotel industry is indeed a step in the right direction. These initiatives go a long way in keeping the message of the importance of voting in circulation and also act as an incentive to many youth who are voting for the first time.
A 20% cut in profit is not a small loss to absorb, but if a 20% cut in the overall bill can motivate and incentivize people to go out and vote, it will not only strengthen democracy, but it will also make people realize the power of their single vote. With camera person Sanjay Jaina, this is Ravi Dhiman in Puri for DDI India.
So show your ring and get a discounted drink or a meal. That's the message that's been put out in Puri. Now, many of you would be visiting polling booths in India's capital and other parts of the country on Saturday to cast your vote. Rahul Upadhyay tells you all about how polling booths are set up and the criteria for setting up a booth at a particular location.
And many of you must have visited to polling stations to cast your vote at your respective constituencies. But have you ever thought how these polling stations are get set up? What are the criteria and procedure behind this? We have tried to find out. Let's take a look.
Electioneering in India is a big and mammoth exercise. It involves advanced planning, execution of well-planned strategies to ensure free and fair elections. It begins with announcement of date for election. The process of setting up of polling stations follows certain norms and principles. The district election officer is assigned the responsibility to set up and publish the list of polling stations in their district. There are some principles on the basis of which polling stations are set up. These include ensuring that voters do not have to travel more than 2 km to cast their vote.
What we have done is on P-1 day, हम इनको dispatch कर रहे हैं. We are sending them to their polling locations. We have tell them which polling location each party will be going. So they are in the buses. They are taking their polling material along with EVMs. So sector officer will go along with them. They will set up their polling booth. They will stay there.
These principles, however, are not set in stone. Polling stations can even cater to less than 300 voters in case access is a problem. For example, in a rugged terrain. In cases where the number of electors exceeds 1500, auxiliary polling stations are set up, preferably in the same building. Polling station locations are chosen carefully, usually in a government or semi-government institutions. They try to avoid using private buildings unless it's absolutely necessary. Polling stations are equipped with adequate shade structures like tents, canopies or umbrellas, seating, cooling devices like fans, proper ventilation, drinking water and ORS.
At polling location, we have made all the arrangements for their night stay, for water and for heat wave for tomorrow. For even voters, we have made waiting shed, coolers are there. Then we have kept ORS. Then there are waiting areas. Then there is a medical room is there.
In addition to this, the ECI has also identified polling stations which are likely to face heat waves based on India Meteorological Department data.
These are some of the arrangements which Election Commission official make for us. Amid all these efforts, voter participation play a major role to make an election success. And for this, we must have to understand the value of our vote and we should come out and cast our vote. With camera person Anil Thakur, this is Rahul Upadhyay from New Delhi for DD India.
Let's now take you across to three of my colleagues in three different parts of the nation. In fact, four if I stand corrected there. The Bendu model joins us from Tomluk in West Bengal, Deepika Mahto from Azamgarh in Uttar Pradesh, Amritpal Singh from Panchkula in Haryana, and we also have Salman Haider joining us from Patna. Let me first go across to you, Dibyendu. West Bengal's notorious culture of violence in politics has raised its ugly head again in this phase. What sort of an impact could it have on the polling on Saturday?
Very right. Even this time around, Bengal's the notorious violence culture during elections have come to the forefront once again. By and large, these elections were very peaceful. There was not much bloodshed or killing that happened in this particular elections, barring what we saw yesterday in this particular constituency where I'm standing. This is Tomluk, and the violence took place just about 50 kilometers from where I'm currently standing, that is Nondigram. You remember Nondigram is also known for the violence that happened about 15-17 years back, which led to the fall of the left front government 34 years after it ruled Bengal. So of course, the election officials here, we have been told, are taking adequate measures. We are also being told that the villages that saw the violence last night and today morning are also are being patrolled by the paramilitary forces across the villages. There are paramilitary forces that are stationed in the villages. Apart from the local police administration, the district magistrate have also been visiting that place since yesterday. And we are being told that all adequate measures are being taken to ensure that free and fair polling do take place. But what we hear from the locals in Nondigram is that they are living in constant fear, and they are being told that they will not be allowed to go and cast vote. But the district administration have assured the villagers that yes, they will be allowed to go and cast their vote, and the district administration will make all adequate arrangements with the security personnel to ensure that they are able to go to the respective polling station and cast their vote. So of course, Gautam, having said this, the violence culture in West Bengal have once again shown its bloody face since day before yesterday night, when we saw that violence taking place and clashes happening between the ruling Trinamool Congress and the BJP here in Nondigram. And why Nondigram have been facing this is, of course, because of the fact that it's a hotly contested seat between the BJP and the Trinamool Congress.
Okay.
Remember, in the 2021 election, Mamata Banerjee was defeated from this particular Nondigram by the BJP's Shubhendu Adhikari, who is also the leader of opposition now.
Yes.
Shubhendu was an erstwhile confidant of Mamata Banerjee, but he switched over to the BJP and contested against the sitting chief minister from Nandigram. It is also the home turf of the Adhikari family. Shishir Adhikari had been a sitting MP from this Tomluk constituency, who is the father of Shubhendu Adhikari. So you can imagine the kind of hold that
yes,
the Adhikari
so
family
fairly
holds,
contentious, and which
in
is
this
why
particular
perhaps you're
constituency of
seeing an
Tomluk.
added element of heat here, which is turned into violence. Let me bring in Deepika now. 14 seats, Deepika, in Uttar Pradesh at stake in this particular phase. How critical is this phase for both the BJP or NDA and its rivals?
Good evening, Gautam. Yes, it is a very important seat, a very hotly contested seat again, because this is Azamgarh, a very important seat from the point of view of BJP, because they really need to defeat Samajwadi Party here. Now, you would remember the candidate who is contesting from Samajwadi Party's side is a very close, it is rather a cousin of Akhilesh Yadav, who's been the former Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh. So, Akhilesh Yadav was earlier contesting from these seats, but then he left it in 2020s, and now he has asked his close aide Dharmendra Yadav to contest from this seat. So this seat largely has been dominated by Samajwadi Party. And now what BJP is trying to do after 2019 election, because 2019 they again lost. They won the seat, they won this particular seat in the assembly elections, and now in 2024 they are once again trying to win this seat, because this is important to shun the violence here, to make progress here. The voters here are looking forward and expecting more sort of progress in terms of job opportunities, in terms of better facilities, in terms of better infrastructure. So this is what the key concerns of the people are, this which makes it even more interesting. And moreover, altogether, what BJP has been saying about this seat, that they want to shun the the tag of terror from Azamgarh, Gautam.
Okay, okay. So lots of things to consider for the voters there. Let's stay with the eastern part of the country and take in Salman Haider as well, joining us from Patna. 6 seats in this phase, Salman, and Bihar has seen polling take place in different seats in all the phases that have taken place earlier as well. So are voters glad in this phase that they're getting their chance to deliver their verdict now, or are they a little wary of how the election has been proceeding for so long?
See, Gautam, there was a small violence in Saran, and its after effect is also on the voters, and it will have political consequences also. But in this phase, there are 8 seats to take, and all 8 seats are with NDA. Was with NDA during last election, 2019 elections.
Right.
And the opposition, mainly Indi alliance, is trying to snatch some of the seats from the NDA alliance. But there are some stalwarts now being fielded by the NDA. One of those are a candidate, Radha Mohan Singh. As you know, he is a former union minister fighting from East Champaran, and he will become, if he becomes MP this time, it will be his 7th time right now. Similarly, Sanjay Jaiswal is a BJP candidate from West Champaran and is out to get his 4th win. Whereas Janardhan Sidhiwal is fighting, he is another BJP candidate and is out to score a hat-trick. Similarly, Awadh Bihari Chaudhary is there, who had been Speaker to Vidhan Sabha last time, is fighting also from Siwan, and Vijay Lakshmi is there from NDA. So this phase is very interesting and could yield interesting results also.
Okay.
As you know, Shahabuddin was a notorious criminal here.
True.
His wife is also fighting election as an independent candidate from Siwan. So the fight is tough for each party, I mean opposition and the ruling party. Let's see what happens during the on the result day on 4th of June. Yes,
all right, Salman. Amrit, if I could now come to you in the West, the BJP holds all 10 seats in Haryana. Now, is a 10 out of 10 repeat performance on the cards, or will the Congress and its allies be able to loosen the BJP's iron grip over Haryana and, for that matter, even Delhi?
Well, that's the challenge for the BJP. For the BJP, they're trying to retain their grip on the state. They've been in power in the state for about 9.5 years now. In October, the state goes to polls. They had a clean sweep in the parliamentary elections the last time in 2019. For them, it is the challenge is to retain that. For the Congress, their main rival is the Congress. The Congress is fighting for its revival after its drubbing in 2019 and poor performance even in state assembly elections, primarily due to factionalism within the Congress. The Congress is trying to revive itself. So the battle really is between these two parties, though Congress is in alliance with the Aam Party as part of the India Alliance. The lone seat that the Aam Aadmi Party is contesting on is Kurukshetra, where Sushil Gupta is pitted of the AAP is pitted against Naveen Jindal of the BJP. But on the rest of the 9 seats, it is Congress which is contesting and against the BJP. And on some seats they do look like as of now on a strong position. For example, Sirsa is one seat where Shelja is pitted against a former congressman who was in fact Ashok newcomer who was in fact the state president of the Congress for some time. It seems like a good contest. Dipinder Hooda from their traditional seat, the son of former Chief Minister Bhupinder Singh Hooda from Rohtak, looks like in a strong position. The BJP also has its strong pockets. Gurgaon looks like a strong pocket. Manohar Lal Khattar is contesting from Karnal, former Chief Minister, though the BJP tried to do a rejig to sort of do a social engineering to one, ward off the anti-incumbency of the past 10 years in the state, and secondly to do a social engineering in terms of caste. So it's primarily a contest between these two parties.
All right, let's see which way it goes, and we'll only know on the 4th of June. For the time being, thank you so much for joining us here, Dipendu, Deepika, Amrit as well as Salman. Thanks. Now, campaigning has been going on in full swing for the 7th and final phase of the Lok Sabha polls slated for the 1st of June. We take a look at the next report about how both the ruling as well as the opposition parties are leaving no stone unturned to traverse the length and breadth of the country to reach out to the voters with their promises and claims and counterclaims, attacks and counterattacks.
Campaigning has intensified for the 7th and final phase of Lok Sabha polls. Senior BJP leader and Prime Minister Narendra Modi was in Nahan and Mandi in Himachal Pradesh. While addressing a poll rally, he said that the country's military has become stronger over the past decade.
कांग्रेस की कमजोर सरकार दुनिया में गुहार लगाती फिरती थी। मोदी ने कहा, भारत अब दुनिया के पास भीख नहीं मांगेगा, भारत अपनी लड़ाई खुद लड़ेगा।
Later, Prime Minister reached the Indian state of Punjab, where he addressed a rally in Gurdaspur, while BJP leader and Home Minister Amit Shah held a public rally at Madhupur in Jharkhand and Ara in Bihar.
मोदी जी ने गरीबों के कल्याण के लिए ढेर सारी योजनाएं बनाई। मोदी जी ने 80 करोड़ गरीबों को प्रति व्यक्ति प्रति माह 5 किलो मुफ्त राशन दिया।
BJP President JP Nadda on the campaign trail in Kushinagar in Uttar Pradesh praised PM Modi for leading the country decisively during the pandemic and saving lives.
कोई देश नहीं तय कर पाया कि कोरोना से लड़ा कैसे जाए, लेकिन प्रधानमंत्री मोदी जी ने कड़ा फैसला लिया, कटु फैसला लिया और 12 घंटे के अंदर लॉकडाउन लगाया और मोदी जी ने कहा, जान है तो जहान है।
The opposition is also not taking any chances and is campaigning across the length and breadth of the country. Congress President Mallikarjun Kharge, while addressing the poll rally in Deoghar, Jharkhand, cornered the ruling Modi government.
मोदी जी हमेशा यही कहते हैं कि कांग्रेस इस 55 साल में क्या की, लेकिन मैं पूछना चाहता हूं मोदी जी को, और 55 साल का हिसाब तो हम देंगे, तुम 10 साल का हिसाब दो, क्या इस देश के लिए तुमने किया?
RJD's Tejasvi Yadav slammed the BJP.
जहर फैलाने का काम कर रहे हैं, ये सब चलने वाला नहीं है। बिहार में जॉब का ट्रेंड चल रहा है और कुछ नहीं चल रहा।
While senior Congress leader and the party's candidate from Thiruvananthapuram, Shashi Tharoor, was hopeful of Congress coming to power.
It's become increasingly clear to us that the trend is heading in a certain direction, and on the 4th of June, there's going to be a change of government in Delhi. The government, at the moment, the BJP has a majority of 303 in the Lok Sabha. It is manifestly clear that they're going to drop a long way below the majority mark.
Voting will take place for the 7th and last phase on 1st of June, and counting will be held on 4th June. With Bureau Inputs, Shagnik Chakraborty, DD India.
Let's now take you to foreign shores. And Georgia's ruling party on Friday accused the United States of pursuing a policy of threats and blackmail against Georgia over its decision to impose visa restrictions against members of parliament who back a bill on foreign agents. The draft law has sparked a political crisis in the South Caucasus country. Protesters have taken to streets in some of the biggest rallies since Georgia gained independence from the Soviet Union to voice opposition to the bill, which has been condemned by domestic critics, the US and the EU as authoritarian and Russian-inspired. And still to come on DD India NewsHour. Hundreds fear dead after landslide hits a remote village in Papua New Guinea. And Britain's lawmakers are leaving Parliament on Friday for the last time before an election is held in 6 weeks.
We are in Cannes, the famous city on the French Riviera. The 77th edition of the Cannes Film Festival is here. So soak into 12 days of world cinema and the hottest fashion trends. The famous 24 steps leading to the Palais des Festivals, where most of the cinema at this festival is screened, are beckoning. Join me, Munmun Bhattacharya, as I take you through all the buzz around the festival and on India's participation in it, only on DD India.
Welcome back. Finance ministers and central bankers from the G7 nations are trying to make progress on how to use frozen Russian assets in the West to help Ukraine. The World Bank has expressed support in managing the fund for Ukraine. The two-day meeting has kicked off in Italy, where these leaders are also expected to discuss China's industrial policies, which they consider unfair, artificial intelligence and taxes for multinational companies. Let's get you more on this critical G7 meeting. Giles Gibson is joining us from Rome. Good evening to you, Giles. What is the likelihood of good news being in store for Ukraine out of this meeting in Italy?
Well, look, the discussions over the course of the day have been centering around how to use frozen Russian assets in the West, about $300 billion worth of them, to help Ukraine in their war effort. We've seen some discussions going into this meeting from, for example, the German Finance Minister Christian Lindner saying that there are still many legal and technical issues that need to be resolved. US officials saying that there is some progress, they hope, towards the sort of general principle about how they're going to use those $300 billion, about how they're going to leverage them, but not necessarily really any expectation of a complete deal being done, of the sort of fine detail being worked out. Just to kind of run you through the overall debate that we've had over many months over this issue, you have the US and Canada, who started out really calling for this money, these assets, to be just confiscated and handed over to the Ukrainians, a very simple maneuver. And then you had the Europeans pushing back, because actually the majority of these assets are held within the European Union rather than over in the US. The Europeans very concerned about potentially setting a dangerous legal precedent here in terms of confiscating the assets of a sovereign state. What it looks like we are moving towards as we go into the second day of these talks on Saturday is some sort of a deal where you could have a $50 billion loan potentially, or perhaps a bit less, perhaps managed by the World Bank. We'll have to see how that works out. That loan secured against the profits of these Russian assets. Now, I have to stress that by the end of these talks, by the time we get the joint statement, we are not expecting the finance ministers to have made any sort of a final decision there. We really expect that to come at the earliest when we get the leaders of the G7 coming to Italy in about 3 weeks' time.
All right. And what is being considered to tackle China's overcapacity in production? And will Beijing's military exercises over the last 2 days encircling Taiwan also have a bearing on these deliberations?
Well, certainly the Chinese overcapacity, as it's described by the US and their allies. Of course, we had the US heading into these talks announcing that their higher levels of tariffs on Chinese imports are going to be kicking in on the 1st of August. Those tariffs particularly targeting electric vehicles as well as the batteries that go into those EVs, as well as medical medical devices. Now, we are not expecting the Europeans or even the Japanese or the Canadians, the other members of the G7, to commit to any sort of coordinated tariffs when it comes to China. That's because for a lot of the European members, their economies are very exposed to China in terms of the amount of trade that they have for luxury goods or cars or that sort of thing moving from Europe into China. There is also a lot of concern about kind of a trade war breaking out. You have the German finance minister Christian Lindner saying that trade wars are all about losing, that you can't win them. So by the time we get the joint statement from the finance ministers at the end of these 2 days of talks on that lakeside hotel, that lakeside venue in northern Italy, we are expecting to see some pretty tough language, a combined front from the G7 in terms of how Chinese imports are affecting their economies, but really absolutely no expectation that there's going to be any sort of coordinated action when it comes to tariffs.
All right. Well, let's see what kind of progress is made, because the US has been pushing that envelope on tackling this overcapacity for quite some time. Janet Yellen there in China too, doing that directly with the Chinese leadership, but nothing seems to be working out at the moment. Thanks, Giles, for joining us. Now, Russia's President Vladimir Putin is considering halting the war in Ukraine through a negotiated ceasefire that recognizes current battlefield lines. News agencies quoting sources reported that Putin has expressed frustration in his inner circle over Western efforts hindering negotiations. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Zelensky has visited Kharkiv amid intense fighting. On the other hand, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has accused Ukraine of using US-supplied weapons to strike targets inside Russia. Syed Absar Hassan reports.
Russia's President Vladimir Putin is ready to halt the war in Ukraine after a negotiated ceasefire that recognizes the current battlefield lines. Three sources in Putin's circle express his frustration with Western-backed efforts to hinder negotiation. Putin voiced concerns to advisors about Zelensky's refusal to engage in talks. They spoke anonymously due to the sensitive nature of the matter. 5 persons familiar with Putin's inner circle were consulted. One source did not comment on halting the war at the current front lines. Putin's spokesperson Dmitry Peskov emphasized Russia's openness to dialogue for its goals. He said that Russia does not desire perpetual conflict. Ukraine's foreign and defense ministries have not commented yet. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said that the Ukraine had used weapons supplied by the United States to strike targets inside Russia.
For a very long time, they were stating that they do not encourage the use of Western arms against targets in Russia. Then they said they would not allow it. Then they advised against using it again. But in fact, they are waging a war against us, and American weapons have already been used on a variety of objects outside the conflict zone.
Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky visited Kharkiv amid intense fighting in the region. In a post on X, Zelensky said, "Today I am in Kharkiv. I also receive updates on defense operations, particularly in the Vovchanska area, as well as the recovery of the damaged energy infrastructure." Russian forces launched a cross-border assault on May 10, driving towards the border town of Vovchanska of Ukraine. Russia says it wants to set up a buffer zone in the region in what it calls a response to Kyiv's shelling of Russian border regions such as Belgorod. Syed Absarul Hassan reporting for DD India.
And in London, British lawmakers are due to finish up parliamentary business in the coming hours before joining their party campaigns for the 4th of July parliamentary elections. A number of laws that could be passed in a couple of hours include bills enabling compensation for the victims of contaminated blood scandal. But Prime Minister Rishi Sunak confirmed that a smoking ban will not become a law before the elections.
The smoking ban, of course, disappointed to not be able to get that through at the end of this session, given the time available. But what I'd say is that's evidence of the bold action that I'm prepared to take. That's the type of Prime Minister I am. That's the type of leadership that I bring.
Now, with major parties kick-starting their campaign, Labour leader Keir Starmer is using a visit to Scotland to promote his plan for a publicly owned green electricity generator. DD India's Ollie Barrett is joining us from London to talk about this a little further. Good evening, Ollie. Now, before we talk about the British Parliament wrapping up whatever business it can ahead of being dissolved, what can you tell us about several MPs taking a call to stand down in record-breaking numbers before the contest begins for the next UK Parliament? What does that tell us about what's in store?
Well, as you say, record-breaking numbers. We know now that we've breached that 75 number of Conservative MPs saying that they won't stand at the next election. That is a record now, an equalling record going back to 1997. We haven't seen that many Conservative MPs announcing they won't stand again as they head into an election. And you remember that in 1997, the Conservative Party were dealt a resounding defeat by the Labour Party led by Tony Blair. So it's a bad sign and leads to concerns in some circles of the Conservative Party that many parliamentarians are deciding not to stand again simply because they fear a very large defeat and are getting out while they can. Now, the Conservative Party leadership would deny that. They would say that it's much more cyclical, that people are leaving their posts for all sorts of reasons, but it certainly does lead to a difficult impression for the Conservative Party. But as I say, there are lots of MPs leaving from other parties in the House of Commons as well. Quite a few dozen Labour MPs won't be standing. We have heard in recent years from parliamentarians from time to time how difficult this job is. Sometimes they feel under threat. We've seen 2 MPs murdered in the last decade, and so many MPs feeling that it's time to get out and do something else. But when it comes to the Conservatives, as I say, it just does add to the impression that within the party there might not be a huge amount of confidence about this election campaign and about the vote on July the 4th.
And regardless of this sort of a downbeat scenario, Rishi Sunak seems to be soldiering on, campaigning in the Midlands today. Now, does he have a plan where he can still make a case for the Conservatives despite issues like cost of living, migration, health services and whatnot?
He has a plan. Whether it's going to work is another matter. He has, as you say, been crisscrossing the country again. He's been in the Midlands, he's been in Northern Ireland, he's been elsewhere too, and everywhere he goes, he insists that he does have a plan. He says that the plan is starting to work. He pointed to the fact that today it was announced that energy bills for households would be coming down. He said that that was another piece of evidence that the economy is beginning to turn in the right direction, that the cost of living crisis is beginning to ease, and that life will get better for many millions of people. So he's saying, stick with my plan. Things are on the turn, and you will be leading to potential dangers on the economy, on defence, on other issues around migration too, if you go for the Labour Party at the next election. Now, you won't be surprised to hear that Keir Starmer, the Labour leader, sees it a very different way. He's also crisscrossing the country. He's been in Scotland, as you say. He's been talking about energy. He continues to say that the Conservatives have presided over a period of chaos, that it's time for a change, that the British electorate wants something different. So we have pretty clear messaging from both camps about their cases for staying in office or going into office as a new incoming government. One of the key areas of debate in the last 24 hours has been around television debates and how many there should be. Rishi Sunak says he wants 6. He'll do 1 a week against Keir Starmer. Keir Starmer says he'd rather spend more of his time speaking to the British electorate rather than to the British Prime Minister. He thinks there should probably be a handful of debates between now and July the 4th on television.
All right. In the US, we'll be lucky to see one taking place between Joe Biden and Donald Trump if it ever happens. But there'll be another time and space to talk about that as well. Thanks for joining us for the moment, Ollie Barrett. China staged a mock missile strike and dispatched its fighter jets carrying live missiles and bombers on Friday as part of military exercises that Beijing has said were launched to punish Taiwan's new president, Lai Ching-te. The drills in the Taiwan Strait included mock bombing of foreign vessels. The bombers set up several attack formations in the waters east of Taiwan, carrying out mock attacks in coordination with naval vessels. China criticized Lai's inauguration speech, in which he urged Beijing to stop its threats and said that the two sides of the strait were not subordinate to each other. In a statement, the Eastern Theatre Command of the People's Liberation Army said that the exercises, dubbed as Joint Sword 2024A, were to test China's ability to jointly seize power, launch joint attacks and occupy key areas. And amidst heavy fighting as Israeli military intensified operations in Gaza, the International Court of Justice has ordered Israel to halt its operations in southern Gaza's Rafah. The ICJ delivered this ruling on South Africa's petition. Meanwhile, the Israeli military has retrieved bodies of 3 hostages and vowed to continue its operations. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu is also set to address the US Congress, highlighting Washington's support amid the crisis.
As Israel intensified military operation on Gaza, engaging in heavy fighting in Jabalia in the north and advancing further into Rafah in the south, the International Court of Justice delivered a ruling on Friday regarding South Africa's petition to halt Israel's offensive in Rafah. ICJ ordered Israel to halt military operation in Rafah.
Israel must immediately halt its military offensive and any other action in the Rafah governorate which may inflict on the Palestinian group in Gaza conditions of life that could bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part.
While the ICJ's decisions carry international weight, the court lacks direct enforcement mechanisms. On Friday, the Israeli military reported a significant development, stating it had successfully retrieved the bodies of 3 hostages taken into Gaza during an October 7 attack by Hamas, and affirmed its commitment to continue operations until all hostages are safely recovered.
It is with a heavy heart that I share that last night, Israeli special forces in Gaza rescued the bodies of our hostages, Hanania Vlonka, Michel Nissenbaum, Orion Hernandez. Their bodies were rescued during a special operation based on precise intelligence in the area of Gaza. There are men, women, children, and babies being held by Hamas in living hell across our border in Gaza. We will not stop fighting for their freedom. Every decent country in the world would do the same.
In a bid to address the escalating crisis, French President Emmanuel Macron is meeting diplomats from Qatar, Egypt, Jordan and Saudi Arabia for discussions on the Gaza issue. Republican US House Speaker Mike Johnson announced that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is addressing a joint session of Congress and said that Netanyahu's upcoming address would demonstrate Washington DC's backing for the Israeli government during its most challenging period. Ravindra Chauhan's report for DD India.
At least 100 people are feared killed in a massive landslide that took place in a remote village in Papua New Guinea on early Friday morning. The death toll is expected to rise. The incident that took place 600 kilometers north of capital Port Moresby razed homes, gardens and everything else to the ground. And still to come in DD India News Hour. The French Open draws are out. Rafael Nadal will face a tough test against Alexander Zverev in the first round in Paris. Renowned Sherpa mountain guide Kami Rita gets a rousing welcome in Kathmandu after climbing Mount Everest for a record 30th time.
In the world's largest election,
we help you feel the pulse of the nation.
I am Sakal Bhatt.
I am Shubhendu Ghosh.
This election season, join us on a journey of India.
We are in Assam. This is the tea city of India.
From down south, Tamil Nadu.
Discover the colors of democracy.
Gateway to northeast of India.
Coastal state of Kerala. Watch Poll Pulse on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Gautam Roy. Now, in an exclusive interview with DD India's spiritual leader Sri Ravi Shankar has said that India is unstoppable and will keep going ahead.
आप बड़े एंशियंट हो, यू आर वेरी एंशियंट और यू आर एवर न्यू ऑल्सो. अपने आप को संभाल, अपने मन को संभालें और आप इस दुनिया में हैं कुछ करने के लिए. इस बात को मन में रखें और आगे बढ़ते जाएं.
Or India's way forward?
India's way forward.
What is the India way?
India is unstoppable. It will keep going ahead and be part of it. Be part of the positive challenges and the progress that you need to go through.
He also said India is part of the solution as a mediator, maintaining neutrality amid conflicts. That's what Sri Ravi Shankar said in an exclusive interview with DD India's Sakal Bhatt. You can again listen to what he says on conflicts and deep divisions in the current global polity.
You have spearheaded some unprecedented conflict resolution movements across the world. And if we look at the current times where we are living in, the world is vertically divided. What, according to you, is the new template of solution or resolution?
Dialogue is the only way. You know, unless people sit across the table, understand each other, getting into each other's shoe, there can't be peace. For this, India can play a very, very important role, and it is doing in some way, because it's a positive energy that promotes, dialogue. And if a person who is initiating, the mediator or the mediating force, has more positive outlook, a broad outlook towards life, like our country has, then it can make a big difference in the world.
So India is part of the solution. India is showing the way.
India is, of course. See, the way India has stirred itself, not falling into one trap or the other, and being in the middle.
Yes, neutrality. But Gurudev, India's neutrality on certain situations has also been questioned, where India has said that we are taking our side, but we are by peace, we stand by peace.
Yeah. I mean, we have done extremely well in this situation between Russia and Ukraine conflict. We did not just go into one-sided, which we were pushed to. Usually in this conflict, when there is a bipolar world, they try to push you over to either of the sides. So India here has very well managed to stay neutral and make our own economy strong. You know, when every other economy is collapsing, we are growing. This credit nobody can take away from the current government.
India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar on Friday slammed the anti-India ecosystem, calling it calling them westernized elites who are disdaining India in an election year, who want to influence the direction of Indian politics to benefit a narrow minority.
When the sales are down in the domestic Khan market, the international Khan market gang feels, look, I need to pep up these guys and give them support. And you can actually see that, you can actually see which stories they play up, how do they slant things. They, in fact, in previous elections, perhaps even in this one, they have actually openly endorsed parties. They have openly endorsed leaders and openly said that, this party or this leader is bad for India.
Now, a preliminary report by Iran's military has said no evidence of foul play or attack has been found so far during investigations into the helicopter crash that killed Iran's President Ibrahim Raisi. That's what the state media has reported on Friday. Raisi was killed when his helicopter came down in poor weather in mountains near the Azerbaijan border on Sunday. A report issued by the Armed Forces General Staff said, and I quote, signs of gunshot or similar were not observed in the wreckage of the helicopter, which crashed in an area in high altitude and burst into flames. You're watching DD India NewsHour, and it's time now to get you all the sporting updates as well. And the draw for the second Grand Slam of the year, the French Open, is out. Unseeded record 14-time French Open winner Rafael Nadal will face a tough test against Alexander Zverev in the first round itself in Paris. The 22-time Grand Slam champion has won the French Open 14 times, more than any other player in tennis history, and holds an incredible 112-3 record at Roland Garros. Nadal currently holds a 7-3 record against Zverev, who won the title in Rome last week. Sherpa Kami Rita returned to Nepal's capital Kathmandu on Friday after reaching the 8,849-meter peak of the Mount Everest the 30th time. Kami Rita, who arrived to celebrations at Kathmandu airport, had climbed the peak for the 29th time a year before on the 12th of May 2023. He first climbed the Everest in 1994 and has done so almost every year. And that's all we have for this edition of DD India News Hour, but do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. You can scan the QR code on the screen to download the app now. And we'll be back with more news and updates as a break here on DD India. I'm Gautam Roy, and from all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.